Hello and welcome to World News Midnight Edition. I'm your host, Karim Zachary, and these are the headlines. Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune receives Elizabeth Borne along with her delegation at the presidency building. Algerian Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman affirms the political will towards a new conception of the economic partnership between Algeria and France. Russian forces have bombed the Ukrainian capital Kiev and many other cities in retaliation to bombing the Crimea bridge. And the UN High Commissioner for Refugees warned against the rising cost of living that is making life harder for more than 100 million people. Welcome again to the program. France's Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne assured Monday in Algiers that cooperation between Algeria and France is essential, stressing that the two countries have advanced in their projects to establish renewed partnership. And this comes after Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune received Elizabeth Borne along with her delegation at the presidency building. The meeting was attended by Algerian officials as well.
Je tiens à remercier le président Tebboune pour l'entretien que nous venons d'avoir.
I would like to thank President Tebboune for the interview we just had, the day after the 5th High-Level Government Committee. Over a month ago, Presidents Tebboune and Macron affirmed in a joint declaration the commitment to build a renewed relationship based on strong ambitions, solid cooperation, with special attention to the youth of our countries.
Ma venue à Alger
We came to Algiers with a large ministerial delegation. The quality of the welcome given by President Tebboune and the Algerian community and the richness of our exchanges are proof of our determination to act and build together.
à agir et à construire ensemble.
Still in the same file, the Algerian Prime Minister Mr. Ayman bin Abdurrahman indicated on Monday that the Algerian-French Economic Forum affirmed the political will of the leaders of the two countries to move forward or towards a new conception of the economic partnership based on the principles of the Algiers Declaration signed last August in Algiers. The details in this report by Sofiane Kentouri.
Algeria has undeniable assets that could enable it to become North Africa's regional power. The agreements that the Algerian Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman signed with the French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne, which touched many sectors, show that Algiers is back in the game and that Algeria is playing a key role in the stability of North Africa and the Sahel region. French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne expressed hopes for a better future in bilateral relations.
Notre volonté de donner corps à ce partenariat renouvelé,
Our willingness to give impetus to our renewed partnership revolved around three axes. The first one is economy, with the objective of materializing the exchanges held with the entrepreneurs during the visit of the President of the Republic. They hope in Algeria, just like in France, to develop trade innovation and create job opportunities, a source of wealth for our two countries.
source de richesse pour nos deux pays.
In addition to reviewing the strategic projects currently being implemented, the Algerian Prime Minister also reviewed the reforms by the Algerian government to enhance the business environment. The Prime Minister underlined that these indicators point to promising opportunities for investment in Algeria and export to the African market.
At the economic level, we tackled the huge potentials of the two countries and the many cooperation opportunities which wait to be exploited, as well as the most important advantage of geographic proximity and the dense exchanges between the two countries. We underlined the importance of encouraging partnerships and productive investment, creating jobs and wealth, especially in the context of the new investment law in Algeria. We also agreed not to settle only on trade exchanges, which can't alone meet the promising horizon drawn by the presidents of the two countries for the Algerian-French relations.
Indeed, Algeria became an integrated destination for investment. especially due to the nation's proximity to Europe, its geographic location, and the implementation of the recent laws that encourage foreign investments and various incentives for foreign investors.
Still in the same context, Algerian Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman revealed the names of the committee of historians to study the memory files between Algeria and France in the coming days.
In terms of the memory file, we focused on the importance of bilateral work, which includes the Historians Committee, and implementing joint working groups on all memory matters.
We exchanged names and we are in the process of stabilizing the composition on both sides. But I think it is really a matter of days to be able to set up this commission that is important to our two presidents.
And further in the same context, concerning the file of visa, both Algerian and French prime ministers agreed to implement measures which can facilitate the movement of people and certain professional groups between Algeria and France.
Our exchanges have aimed to better frame and organize the movement of people between our two countries. We talked about ways to encourage student, scientific and artistic mobility. I'm thinking of the Artists' Residencies program and of course economic mobility.
And in a different topical news, the Spanish National Court denies Spanish nationality to an employee of the Moroccan consulate in Madrid who had been recruited by the Rabat secret services to spy on Spain. These last events show the fragility of relations between the two Mediterranean countries and the crisis of trust that has shown the real face of the alliance between Rabat and Madrid. The Wall Street Journal said that Zionist military industry companies have made a move to establish specialized factories in the military drone industry in Morocco. The drones will be featured with the attack capabilities and remote surveillance and data collection as well. The United Nations Security Council will hold a meeting on Monday in New York of countries contributing to MINURSO's forces to organize a referendum on self-determination in Western Sahara. The UN body studies the renewal of the mission's mandate at the end of October. Petitioners including Frente Polisario, representative at the United Nations and coordinator with MINURSO, confirmed that Western Sahara situation is a decolonization cause and it is a violation of international humanitarian law. The last meeting devoted to the interventions of the petitioners before the Fourth Commission in charge of decolonization recorded the participation of Mandla Mandela, the grandson of the African icon Nelson Mandela, where he reminded the UN board of the similarities between the old apartheid regime and the current Moroccan occupation of Western Sahara. Let's take a listen.
Bring you greetings of peace, justice and human rights for all. Since Spain ceded any claim over the region, the United Nations has been adopting declarations on Western Sahara that the former colonial power extricated itself from control over the area and washed its hands of the future determination of the area was both convenient and aberration of history. South Africans are themselves victims of colonial occupation and its machinations that wreak havoc with the lives of peoples and rewrite, so to speak, the trajectory of a nation's development.
To the Russia-Ukraine file now, Ukrainian capital Kiev and many other key cities woke up on heavy strikes launched by the Russian forces. The tactical missiles left several buildings damaged as well as a number of civilians dead. Russian President stated that the strikes which took place before the Security Council meeting were a retaliation act for the bombing of the Kerch Bridge in Crimea. The details with Osama Ayadi.
Russia's military hurled a barrage of missiles against Ukrainian cities, including the capital Kyiv, in the early hours on Monday, striking multiple targets in what could be the first step for Moscow's retaliation for the bombing of a key bridge connecting Russia to its annexed territory of Crimea.
In Kyiv today, we've had a couple of missile strikes. A children's playground was hit, a museum was hit, an art gallery was hit, a pedestrian crossing was hit. So this is terror in its worst form and shape.
The first strikes on Kyiv in 4 months targeted the center of the city and left injuries and deaths. The blasts were reported in the Kyiv-Shevchenko district, a large area in the center of Kyiv that includes the historic Old Town, as well as several government offices. Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko condemned the attack on the city, calling the Russian attackers barbarians.
It was a major terror act by Russian barbarians on the capital and regional centers of Ukraine. In Kyiv, the morning and through the day, several areas were hit, in particular the city center. The mad aggressor also hit several objects of the capital's critical infrastructure.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed his nation amid the intensified missile strikes against cities. He stated that power facilities around the country and people were the main targets for those strikes.
They seek panic and chaos. They want to destroy our energy system. They are hopeless. The second target is people. They deliberately chose such a time, such goals, in order to cause as much harm as possible.
After the first early morning strikes in Kyiv, more loud explosions were heard later, and an intensification of Russia's attack that could spell a major escalation in the war.
German Foreign Ministry announced on Monday that the building housing its embassy in Kiev had been shelled by the Russian forces during the last Russian strikes, which hit the Ukrainian capital on Monday morning, in retaliation to bombing the Crimea Bridge. A former head of Bell Foundation, Sergei Samleny, published photos on Twitter and addressed German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, as well as Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock. Germany also stated that the consulate was out of function since the war started in Ukraine on February of the same year. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that a series of strikes Monday across Ukraine came in retaliation against Ukrainian attack on a bridge to Crimea and other attacks in Russia, which he described as terrorist actions. Putin said the Russian military launched precision weapons from the air, sea, ground, and targeted key energy and military command facilities. Let's take a listen.
The Kyiv regime, by its actions, has actually put itself in the same level with international terrorist formations, the most notorious groups. It is simply impossible to leave crimes of this kind unanswered. This morning, at the suggestion of the Defense Ministry and according to the plan by the Russian General Staff, a massive strike with air, sea and land-based high-precision long-range weapons was performed against Ukrainian energy, military command and communication facilities.
And for more updates on the situation in Ukraine, we are joined live via Skype by Mr. Ivan Feshtuk, editor at New Voice of Ukraine from Kiev. First of all, thank you for joining us. Mr. Ivan, can you update us on the situation there and how was people's reaction after the shelling?
Hi, glad to be with you today. And it was a hard day for Ukraine and for Ukraine's capital city, Kiev. We had the biggest aircraft attack on this city since the beginning of the war. It has both human cost and huge damage of the local infrastructure. 6 people dead, 50 people wounded, and that's just the casualties. While we have number of buildings and also energy facilities hit by the Russian missiles, the Russian rockets. And you know, this also shows that if we've been thinking that Ukraine's air defense system has enough capacity to withstand all kinds of missiles, well, we were wrong in that account. If you look at what air defense system did in the skies above Kiev today, the rate of success was 50%, which is definitely not enough. The air defense should be hitting 60 to 80% of the missiles for it work to be considered as decent. And we didn't have that kind of protection. So we're having huge damage, and the emergency services still keep working to get people who might be under the ruins, to get them out. And also what we have is interruptions in electricity supply in water supply, the public transportation doesn't work. And Kiev is a big city where despite the flow of refugees abroad, we still have like 2 million people here staying all the time, trying to work. And now the city is pretty much unlivable because there is no public transportation and many shops don't work.
Very nice. Sorry
And now
to
we
cut
are
your
getting
train
into
of
the
thought,
survival mode.
Mr. Ivan.
Hopefully, we will get over this.
But what can you tell us about the world's reaction after these attacks? Do you think that this would pressure Western allies perhaps to send advanced defense air system?
The biggest and the most important message that we want to hear right now here in Ukraine is new pledges on the air defense system supplies. Well, we know that there is a supply of so-called NASAMS air defense systems from Pentagon, from the United States Secretary of Defense, and also Germany pledged to provide at least 2 aircraft defense systems, which also matters. And we definitely need more of those. War is taking longer, and we do feel that many people in the West and all over the world are frustrated that the war is so long. It's producing lots of instability in global politics, and there are like negative developments in the global economy, but that has mostly to do with inflation. So many would be interested for Ukraine and Russia to stop the war sooner. And we hear calls that we should have negotiations, that we should consider how to get out of these, active stage of the war and move on to a different stage. Well, I do think that diplomacy is possible, but before diplomacy becomes possible, we need to bring safety back to Kiev, which is capital city, and also other cities that were hit in the morning today with missiles.
Indeed.
Because we want to live a normal life, and there is no way we will do diplomatic negotiation while Russian bombs and rockets are hitting residential areas.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ivan.
This is like mandatory prerequisite for
you were
any
live
talks.
with us from Kiev, an editor of the New Voice of Ukraine. Thank you so much. Moving on now, the WAC of the 4th high-level annual meeting of the energy dialogue between Algeria and the European Union kicked off in Algeria on Monday. This meeting comes as a dialogue of mechanisms emanating from the strategic partnership between Algeria and the European Union in the field of energy, which covers all files of common interest.
The meeting was an opportunity to exchange on ways and means of bilateral strengthening in the field of energy, in which it was reiterated that Algeria is a safe and reliable strategic partner in terms of energy supplies, and we renewed our common will to work on strengthening it through continuing exchanges and consulting within the framework of expert working groups regarding natural gas and prospects of developing infrastructure, and in the field of electricity, especially the issue of electrical interconnection and new and renewable energies.
Algeria has abundant renewable energy sources, solar and wind, and is geographically close to Europe. Algeria therefore has a great potential to become a global leader in the production of clean energy for local consumption, but also for export, including towards Europe. We are already working together on the development of renewable energy with our joint Tarka-Nadifa project. Using more sun and wind to generate electricity would yield multiple benefits: decarbonize Algerian electricity system, boost economic growth and create jobs, and leave Algeria with higher volumes of natural gas for export.
And speaking about the energy file, EU-imposed cap on gas prices does not include Algeria. Rather, it is limited to certain paths of gas transported to Europe. This was according to French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne, who considers the cap on Algerian gas a move that causes profound damage to market fundamentals. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced European Union's plan to cut gas prices within the next 2 weeks. Von der Leyen, during a press conference held on the sidelines of the Digitalization Summit held in Tallinn, Estonia, explained that the plan includes measures to immediately reduce electricity and energy prices, describing the measures as insufficient to get rid of what she called Russian blackmail.
Thank you very much. We will come forward as a Commission in the next 2 weeks with proposals to tame the energy prices and to tame the electricity prices. The aim is to reduce the price to a certain level without endangering security of supply. But as I've said, the best way beyond this immediate action to intervene in the market and to limit the electricity and energy prices, the best way over time to get rid of any kind of blackmail from Russia is to accelerate the clean transition in renewable energy. And I know.
And to talk more on the energy file, we are joined live via Skype by Professor Hamoud Salhi, Associate Dean of International Education at California University from USA. Thank you, Professor, for agreeing to be with us. First, my question, Mr. Hamoud Salhi, how do you read this new strategic partnership between Algeria and the EU, and how beneficial is it for the two parties?
It speaks volume about the importance and that the European Union accords to the role of Algeria. Mm-hmm. There are clearly statements by the representative of the EU that shows are all indication of how they view Algeria as a very important partner mm-hmm. and a big player in this area. Mm-hmm. It also speaks to a different level. The visit by the French minister to Algeria also shows a different sort of approach to Algerian-French relationship. I mm-hmm. think when we go back and hear what Macron said, the French president said in Algiers, mm-hmm. there was so much emphasis on the youth, on issues that relates to perhaps his personality. Mm-hmm. What we've seen emerge from this visit is similar to what we've seen in mm-hmm. the EU, that Algeria tends to take its partnership with all its partners comprehensively. Mm-hmm. The discussion and the agreements that came out of mm-hmm. The French visit, along with the EU, mm-hmm. are in line with that approach, meaning mm-hmm. that Algeria becomes a strong benefactor in this partnership.
And speaking about the benefits that we can get, Mr. Hamoud Salhi, Algeria being exempted from the gas cap, how do we explain it? Why is it exempted, and how harmful would it have been if it would have been, let's say, implemented?
Again, there is that perception mm-hmm. that you get from it that when it comes to Algeria, the EU is thinking about the consequences. Mm-hmm. And the consequences really doesn't affect Algeria much, but it affects mm-hmm. more the European. Capping the price mm-hmm. would have detrimental effect on how much it will be sort of exported. And at the same time, it is sort of go against Algeria's agreements before that had with the EU and with other countries of the European Union. So by staying course, what this means is that it speaks more about Algeria's ability to exercise mm-hmm. its independent decision-making on this level, then European come into understanding that Algeria is a big player, big suppliers, mm-hmm. and they cannot impose any restrictions on how much Algeria could be imposed. This mm-hmm. is more about mm-hmm. the European
Professor Hamoud Salhi, thank you so much for all these illustrations. You were live with us from USA. To a different topic now, at a high-level meeting on Monday, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees warned that governments' failure to prevent conflict and address crises like COVID-19, climate change, and the rising cost of living is making life harder for more than 100 million people who have been forcibly displaced and forcing more of them to flee their homes. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our news bulletin comes to a close. Thank you for tuning in to our channel. Bye for now.